you weren't born riding a bike, and you weren't born a public speaker, and you're not going to be born feeling necessarily creative. So just start. In improv, they say yes and. So just start saying yes to things, giving it a shot, fail your way to success. That's how I did it. I'm sure that's how you did it. I'm sure there's a lot of things you say yes to that you don't actually know what you're doing.
Hi everybody in the Mind Valley Tribe membership. Welcome to this month's episode for Impact at Work. What we're going to be talking about this month is something that's very important for a lot of people that are looking to get ahead when it comes to something that is quite essential, living in this physical space where we need to have money, we need to create finances, make sure that we manage them properly. And so, the guest that I'm bringing to you today is none other than Rock Thomas. Rock actually owns several businesses and is someone that started from a farm in Canada and just had the right work ethics, the right strategies for managing money, and then went ahead and got an understanding of what opportunities exist out there to become a self-made millionaire with several franchises such as Remax and other streams of income that you're going to hear a lot more about in the episode. Now, personal finances sometimes come with a bit of awkwardness. It's not something that we actively talk about if there's always been thoughts around, oh, money is the root of all evil. And so what I want to encourage you as you watch this episode is to think about the mindset you have about money, because we're going to challenge a lot of those. And on the other side, you're going to see that abundance is much closer than you ever thought possible. And Rock Thomas is a fantastic author that you're going to learn a ton from in this episode. So let's dive in, let's have a good time and challenge those models around money. Let's do it.
So Rock, thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure. Love being here with you, Jason.
I'd love to start this because it's not that long ago that this video you've made with a partnership with Goalcast talked a lot about, I am whatever you declare following that statement is really what you believe about yourself. And I'd be curious to know what motivated you to do this video and what does it mean for you?
Well, the unfortunate thing is that most people don't realize that they're given labels growing up, as I was. I was called pizza face by my brothers and sisters because I had a lot of acne. And then we start to repeat it as an inner narrative until it becomes our identity. And our identity, how you see yourself, and maybe even more importantly, how you think other people see you, is how you end up showing up in life. So when I kind of cracked the code on that, I realized that you can install a new pattern. So if you see yourself, for instance, as really being a bad money manager, you could actually install in a new belief that you're really good with money. You just have to nurture it, give it some energy, give it some life, talk about it, look at it, play with it. So I was able to go from this pizza face character to modeling Clint Eastwood and then calling myself ruggedly handsome. And then it kind of grew on me. And as that identity grew, I started to get the response from it because my confidence went up. And that's when I decided that if I could give that to people, the hope that they could change part of their identity, that would be a worthy message. And crazy is we had over 1 million people share it. And I had over 100 people send me a message saying that they're on the verge of committing suicide. But when they realized it didn't have to be the label that was given to them by their parents or their caretakers, they got excited they could shift their life. So for me, it's now a mission.
Wow. And what we're going to be talking particularly in this training, we're going to talk about the financial aspect of this identity. And I know you've trained so many people when it comes to the financial part. What draws you to making sure people can get that financial abundance?
Well, the thing that's crazy is that, we live in an abundant world, but people aren't taught how to manage money. People aren't taught how to make decisions around that. In school, it's get a job, go get an education, go get a job, have a career. And then they're doing usually stuff that can make a living but not make a life. And for me, I'm like, God, I figured it out after a while. Necessity being the mother of invention. I lost my job and my father was sick. And I ended up going into being a salesperson when I had no experience. But I got financial freedom because I learned how to win the money game. And I just think it's the saddest thing to watch. If you ever watch people driving to work in traffic, most of the time they look really unhappy. Sitting at a desk, they think they're free, but they're not. And you say rags to riches, I think it should be rats to riches because most people are just in the rat race.
Yeah.
Let's get them out. Let's give them a new choice to live an epic life and do what they love, what they were put here, a meaningful, purposeful life.
Amazing. And so what I like is that you've built all these streams of income, and it wasn't just in one industry. Like I'm very aware that real estate, and I think it's with Remax, you have several offices. What got you to open into different streams? And if you're in real estate, if someone's watching this and then they're in their industry, what allowed you to leap and understand that there's different industries you could go into as well?
Well, the thing happened is that I was fortunate enough to have a mentor that came along and take me under his arm. And I say to people that your friends are comfortable with your present and your mentors are comfortable with your future. If you don't have a mentor in your life that's saying, you know what, Jason, you could do this, I believe in you, and I'm going to walk with you, then chances are you're going to believe your fear, doubt, and worry, which is always present for all of us. So he took me from 1 sale a year to over 100 sales a year in 4 years. And whenever I fell down, he says, you know what, it's normal. So I didn't doubt myself. I didn't feed my doubts. I started to feed my beliefs. And the average agent sells 6 homes a year. I sold 100 homes a year. And when you start to get to that place where you're like, okay, I can be above average, I could do it, I say to people, why not you? Why not you? Why are you in that smaller place than a little voice inside of you? We all have that voice, I believe, that goes, but I think I could do it. And then it gets crushed over time by society. So I want to feed that voice. I'm the voice of encouragement. I see the possibility and the potential of people, and then I just water and water and water it. Some people resist it, and some people flourish.
And what I've particularly liked about watching you, especially on stage, is you actually bring in a lot of energy when you speak to the people. And I think a lot of people forget how much energy is required to make those kinds of change. When you get on stage and you're very agitated and you tell people to take action, like, what do you see in the people that are actually just sitting there and not taking action? Like, why do you think some people are just so in it about not making that change?
Well, the easiest word is fear. Right? They're afraid that they're going to succeed. They're afraid they're going to fail. They're afraid that they're not enough. They're afraid that they can't overcome the challenges. They're afraid that they don't have enough time. So the base word is fear. The question is, meet them where they're at and find out what is the fear that they need to overcome. Maybe they need to have the belief that they actually can have more energy. Maybe they've been sold by society that you get tired at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you need a Snickers bar, and they give in to that. So I'm going to meet them where they're at. I'm going to give them some of the principles of success. I'm a big believer that the first hour of the day is designed to create energy.
Perfect. And this is what you're going to be learning in this training. We're going to go right into it here because we have a lot of rules to conquer. And I bet that while you were watching this introduction, some people probably already started making excuses for themselves. Oh, I might not be like him. And I know we're going to be crushing a lot of these in this training. So with that, we're going to start with our first rule here. And the rule is that, some people, they just look at their bank account and there's never anything left at the end of the month. Money just keeps leaving them. They're like, I don't know where my money went. And so how can I get into like big investments? How do I get into saving money? Because at the end of the month, I never have anything left. What do we tell the people?
Yeah, sadly, 77% of the population live paycheck to paycheck. And I think it starts in school when the credit cards come and they start getting the kids excited about credit cards and they start dangling things in front of them. The reality is that your net worth will never go up more than your self-worth. So if you're not working on your self-worth, if you're not doing the introspection, if you're not aware of your habits, you're going to just end up picking up probably what your mother and father did with money, which is usually not very good. My mom grew up during the time of war. She's never made more than $20,000 a year. And she believes that money is a negative thing. Rich people are mean. They take advantage of people. And if we want to be nice, which most people do deep down inside, we then associate a negative emotion or feeling with money. So then we just start to, push it away. And I say, you have to covet money. You have to have a relationship with money, have a conversation with money. The same way you would with your spouse is you're not going to go like, hey, baby, I don't care about you too much. How long is she going to hang around? Not very long. So romance the money, start to talk to it, start to create a relationship with it, because money to me is just energy. It's prepaid services. I was going through a third world country and I'm looking at these people that basically they work every day just to find enough food to live. They don't have any stored energy. Where you and I can go and we can work today, we can make X dollars, spend 50% of that and have some stored energy. So tomorrow, if we want to take the day off, we still get to eat. So you want to have an experience around money where you attract it to yourself, you're comfortable with it, and eventually we teach people about their money blueprint, which has elements to it, but essentially start to have a relationship where you're like, yeah, I like money, I'm okay with it.
So a lot of people have that negative relationship with money, what would be some of the habits that happen when people have a negative relationship with money that just finds it that they end the month with no money all the time?
Well, first of all, people don't make a budget. And I've discovered that there's a reason they don't do that. And I was shocked, Jason, is that a lot of times people don't do it because they're bad with numbers. And they're like, gosh, I'm not good with math. I'd rather just not know. And then so money comes in, they pay whatever they can, whatever they can't, they kind of avoid it. So what we do is we help people actually go through that process and give them a little bit of a structure. It's not actually that difficult. It's just a matter of doing it. So as you go through that structure and you start to get clarity around it, people we found get excited because they get rewarded for it. So essentially, a simple budget, and then find out where you're wasting your money, where it's not working, and then you can trim away. And there's 3 major areas, we could get into that if you want, that we find right away people benefit from.
Let's get right into these areas. So if I'm someone, I've never done a budget before, what are my leaky pots that I should be aware of right away?
So number 1 is food. So people prefer convenience over other things like saving money. So people will order out, they'll go out, they'll celebrate, they'll work their job during the week that maybe they don't love, and on Friday night they're like, oh God, it's Friday night, and then they go out and spend the money. So they might spend thousands of dollars on food that they don't have, or that they could direct to an investment. So number 1 is food, so I'd check that. Number 2 is subscriptions that they forget about. So they're a member of a gym, they don't go anymore, and they could cancel that. Or they get a magazine, or they've got a podcast, or they've got something that they're getting that they forget about that's not useful. There's many that you should have that are useful, but many that are not. They've expired or you're not paying attention. So they're not keeping track of it. And the third thing is, essentially, if people were to look at negotiating something, I have people that go back and they renegotiate their telephone agreement or their insurance, or they can renegotiate mortgage rates on a mortgage that they're not aware of. If you start to track it and to look where the opportunities are, we've been able to get people about an average of $830 a month in savings just by doing those 3 things.
And it's interesting, there's the quote, I think it's Peter Drucker says, what you measure you can improve, right?
Right.
A lot of people don't even want to put in the effort to do these spreadsheets. And fact is, everybody, we've touched a few of the rules already here, because we started with understanding that, I can't even break even at the month. And what we've realized is that there's some tangible things that you can change that will actually increase the amount of profit that you make in your own income by just reducing some of those expenses. The second one that we just briefly touched on that I want to go back to is you talked about the mindset of people seeing that maybe the parents made them believe that money is the root of all evil. And the rule here that I wanted to highlight is some people say money and wealth is for those people who do dirty actions and that they're like the bad people. But for me, I'm a good person. That's why I don't have money, because I'm not willing to go do what those other people do to attract wealth. And I wanted to go back to this and see, like, what is it that you tell people that have that mindset?
Well, I mean, it comes from the way you were raised, right? And the references you got from it. I know for myself, my family struggled with money, and to me, money became the ticket out. So I started to look at it as an opportunity. I was the guy who knocked on doors and shoveled driveways and walkways for the little old ladies. I cut the lawn, I washed windows, because I was highly motivated because I had a reason. If you were brought up in an environment where your parents said to you something like, hey, it's rude to ask people to buy something, or maybe you were a Girl Scout or a Cub and you knocked on a door and some grumpy old man came to you and said, hey kid, get out of here, don't ever come knocking at my door and bother me. The human spirit wants to connect, belong, and matter. And now all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, if I try to sell something to somebody, I might be separated, I might be ridiculed, I might be pushed away, and I don't want to have that experience. So you make up a story inside to say that I'm just not a pushy salesperson. But in this world we live in today, it's changing. If you don't go up and ask people and connect with people, you're not going to survive. So you've got to be able to develop the fortitude, to build the muscle, to go, and this is why the important thing is that you believe in your product. If you really believe in your product and you have the cure for cancer with your product, you're not going to keep it a secret.
Nope.
You're going to say, hey man, I got this thing that's going to do XYZ for you, right? And you'd be excited. So if you're struggling in that area, what I would say is, find a product you believe in, be congruent. If you're selling, lotions and potions and you believe they're going to keep your face young, God bless you. Get out there and do it. If you're selling something that has to do with, like for me, it was real estate, man, people want to buy real estate, and real estate is the greatest investment you can have to create wealth for your family. That's an easy sale for me. But just be congruent and make sure that you're doing it in your integrity, and the rest should follow.
So I love this aspect of sales, and we talked about one of the things that stop people from getting into that sales mentality, which has a big correlation with attracting financial abundance, is because of that money mindset, saying the money is the root of all evil. And so once you correct that, that's when you start doing the things that are necessary, sales being a major one of them. Now, what I want to continue is on that sales portion. I know one of the rules that people have might not be related to the money, but really directly related to the sales is that, oh, I don't want to be one of these pushy salespeople. I don't want to do that stuff. What do you say to people that are finding themselves stuck there?
So whenever somebody says something like that, I'm always looking for the story they've created to hide the rule, right? So they're saying, oh, I don't want to be one of those pushy salespeople. What they're really saying is, I don't want to be rejected. So the real evidence that I'm looking for is, what's the thing they're trying to cover up? So people don't want to say, hey, I don't feel like coming in at 8 o'clock tomorrow and doing 2 hours of calling to build my business. They're going to say something like, I don't have the time, or I don't want to be a pushy salesperson, or it's difficult to get phone numbers these days because of the internet and everybody's on their cell phone. They'll come up with a story that camouflages the experience they don't want to have, or they expose that they're not enough. So as I start to kind of try to x-ray vision through that, and I'll go, okay, if that's the fear, well then maybe there's something like they weren't experiencing enough challenge in their childhood that could develop them to go out there. Couple that with the fact that most people don't have a clear vision for what they want. For me, I was running away from pain, right? I grew up on a farm, I had a difficult time, so my parents paid me 25 cents an hour when minimum wage was $1. Leaving home and getting a job quadrupled the amount of money I made. So I was motivated. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't have that. They're cushy, they're at home, they're comfortable, they go out into the world's a nasty place, and they get rejected. So we have to build their why. Why are you doing this? What is the vision you have for your life? And it sounds simplistic, Jason, but if you're listening to this, you have to feed that on a regular basis. You have to go, what do I want? What's the purpose of my life? What's the legacy I'm going to live? Why am I here? Why am I going to get up? And pull yourself into the future instead of trying to push yourself. When you have a reason why you want to give away to a charity, you have a problem you want to solve. The problem I want to solve is getting people out of doing a job they hate. Every day when I drive and I purposely look at people in their cars or sitting at their desks and they hate their job, and I'm like, that hurts me, right? We're all part of this quantum soup. That hurts me. I'm part of that. What can I do to solve that problem? I have no problem going up to somebody and talking to them about a skill that's going to get them down the road. Does that make sense?
It does. And then sales being one of that skills that you need to go work on?
Everybody's selling all the time. You just say, you and I, we're going to have dinner tonight. Either you're going to sell me or I'm going to sell you on where we're going to go.
Yes.
Right? He with the most certainty is going to win.
Yeah.
You want to go to a movie. You want to make love to your wife. Somebody's going to sell somebody on something.
Yeah.
So you might as well choose and get clear on what you want, and then be able to dig into it and then be pulled forward. And ultimately, we choose our pain. So do you want the pain of prospecting, or do you want the pain of having no money?
And what's going to be great is one of the systems we're going to cover separately is how to do that assessment of your early childhood, because I know a lot of the people, the first 20 years of their lives is where they've had either not enough challenge, not enough support, or not enough acknowledgement or recognition, and that's caused some issues. So in the separate training, you're going to see that by doing this audit profile, you'll be able to see what are the areas that may cause some of the biggest blocks you have with financial, so that you can unmark all these roadblocks and make your way towards the millions. I want to open up to a new rule now. And this one, we've touched about it again a little at the beginning, and I want to go deeper into it. This rule is the spreadsheets, the financial management, understanding the stock market, understanding the real estate. A lot of people are like, whoa, I'm not somebody who understands this financial stuff. I'm not good with numbers, so I'm just going to stay here and I'm good with that. What do you tell the people who say that?
Well, what do we do in school? People said, if you're not good with math, go get tutoring, and you're a bad kid, and you need to double down your effort. In my world, I do the opposite. What I do is I identify what people's strengths are, and then I put them on the right seat on the bus in my businesses so that they can flourish. So what I would recommend to people, if you have a story, it might be a story, but if you have this experience where you're not good with numbers, you don't like them, is partner up with somebody that loves them. So I have this one guy in my company that loves spreadsheets. And we were on a call the other day and the guy goes, man, dude, I don't know how you do that. I have so much respect for you because you're doing stuff I can't stand. And he turns to him and he goes, I love it. I love it. It lights me up. I can sit there for hours. So find somebody that can help you with that. Let them carry the burden, keep an eye on it, but don't do the schlep work that's not natural to you. You're going to shine somewhere else.
And so a lot of people feel like they need to go and do it themselves, and then when it has to happen, they just decide not to do it at all. So that's some great advice. So where are some places people could find those kinds of people?
Well, I mean, I would say you need to find somebody close to you. Like, ideally, your spouse is really good at it and you're not. Or maybe your dad or your mom or a friend or a close friend. I mean, if you want to get into, you have the money to hire an accountant, then obviously. But you still need to know your own numbers, and you know that. Nobody cares about your money as much as you do. So if you really don't have anybody to do it, then in life, if you do what is difficult, life will be easy, you know? Just, there's some parts of stuff you're gonna have to do. I didn't like vacuuming, I didn't like cutting my lawn, but I did it for years. Now I can pay somebody to do it, but I did it because it needed to be done.
Nice. And so I want to go into one more rule here, which is some people might be watching and are like, okay, this sounds great. I know I can do some of these steps. I might be able to save a little bit of money, but the fact is, to become a millionaire, I need to have money to make money. And I don't have money right now, so then I don't think this is accessible to me.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, a lot of people are told that, and it's true. If you have money, you can make more money. And I do really encourage people to increase their earnings, decrease their expenses, and take the leftover and invest it and put your money to work for you. It definitely does work. But I have 36 streams of income, and many of them were done with little or no money through creativity. So for instance, I've written 3 books. Didn't require any money to write them. Just required me having the discipline and the vision every morning to get up at 5 o'clock, in this case, and to write a page for 2 years. So you can do things like that. When I started coaching people, I coached people for free because I didn't know what I was doing. So I just had a conversation, and then eventually I started to get results. And I remember starting years ago, $75 an hour. Today I charge $1,500 an hour to coach. So you can just kind of work your way into it, Jason, slowly, find something you're passionate about. You got to learn to earn, and then before you know it, you can have a business.
And so a lot of people, they just find themselves like, okay, this is great. How do I nurture this creativity if this is what's required?
Yeah, and I agree with you that a lot of people are like, yeah, but you know, I'm just not smart, or I'm not good with this, or I don't know how to create a business plan, or I don't even know where to start. They have all those fears, doubt, and worry. So I think the most important thing is surround yourself with people that are going to remind you of what you have possible. Like we were talking before on, you know, most public speakers have a fear of speaking, and then later on they look back and they go, like, you know, I've actually progressed a lot. But you weren't born riding a bike, and you weren't born a public speaker, and you're not going to be born feeling necessarily creative. So just start. In improv, they say yes and. So just start saying yes to things, giving it a shot, fail your way to success. That's how I did it. I'm sure that's how you did it. I'm sure there's a lot of things you say yes to that you don't actually know what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And you figure it out, right?
Yes.
So I would say yes and figure it out. Just go for it.
You know, it's funny because we touched on sales earlier, and now we're talking about creativity. Again, it seems to stem from this fear of rejection or this not enoughness. It seems to be at the baseline of a lot of these issues when people talk about making the millions. Is that what you've typically noticed?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I think the biggest 2 fears we have is we're not enough and we won't be loved. And they play in the back of our mind all the time. So whether you're walking into a room at a cocktail party and you're not sure whether you're going to stack up, it's been proven that the human spirit in the first 4 seconds meeting somebody is assessing whether there's any danger. If I walk up to you and both your hands are behind your back, my brain is scanning to say, what does he have behind there? Is it danger? So the mind, the brain is always looking for danger. Unfortunately, if it's untrained or unkept, it tends to rule most people. So the work that I do in personal development is about saying, thank you very much, mind, for sharing. Thank you for pointing out that person may have a sword behind their back, but it's actually Jason at a cocktail party and he's holding a glass of water. I'm okay, right?
Yeah.
So it's really about taming that part of your mind.
Interesting. So we've covered a few things here. We've talked about, some people have the money just escape them. So even getting to the millions doesn't even come to mind because they see money comes in, money comes out. And what's going to be wonderful is we have a system that we're going to be sharing with people where you can actually see how you can maximize your income so that you can see some of the opportunities. And some are very simple. I mean, I've heard you mention these before. So you're going to be able to see how you can maximize income in your current state no matter where you are and knowing that you're going up. We're also going to have a system about how you manage those expenses because a lot of times people can't find themselves accumulating wealth because the expenses are too high. And I love the story. I'd love for you to share at this point a story because I think it means a lot to people who are keeping up with the Jones. A lot of people are in this set where it's like, yeah, but I don't want to minimize expenses because I want to have that car, I want to have that house. Right. Can you share a bit about what you went through? Because I know this is going to be powerful for people to understand the commitment it takes to make the money.
Yeah, when I was 23 I came back from traveling around Southeast Asia. I had no money left and I went to university to study philosophy and I got a part-time job to put myself through that. And I ended up then, I have a great work ethic, showing up early, staying late. They offered for me to be a part owner. I borrowed 20 grand from my mom, put it into the restaurant, didn't know what I was doing, and within 6 months the restaurant went bankrupt. I worked for several months for free, so I had literally no money. And it was at that point in time that I moved to another city and I rented a room in somebody's house for $200 a month. That's all I could afford. It was nothing glamorous, but I was able to go to my job as a flight attendant and I was able to work extra hours parking cars at a hotel in order to make back the money. So the nice thing about that is that if you're willing to, on the short term, lower your lifestyle, then you're able to rapidly save money. And that's the part you're referring to, is most people aren't willing to do that. They want to look good, they want to be able to have the fancy car or the cool clothes. And if you're willing to make that sacrifice like I was, within a year and a half, I paid back my mother the $20,000. Now we're talking a long time ago, 30 years or so it's like, say, $60,000 today in a year and a half of paying back a debt while paying for your expenses. So for me, it's not a scarcity mindset to reduce your expenses, it's a strategy. If you're willing to do it, rent out a room in your house if you want. There's ways that you can do it and you can accelerate your success, but you again have to go back to what's your vision, what do you want? I want an epic life. I like experiences. I like to come to cool events with you guys. I like to fly business class. That's where I spend my money, but I don't spend it on areas that I can't afford.
Awesome. And so you're going to have a system to make you look at the life and look at those expenses and seeing that there's some big work to be done there so that you can actually start having that positive cash flow that can start bringing a lot of that money into the investment side. And we're also going to have this system where you're going to actually have a chance to audit yourself and your upbringing because we talked about some of the rules that happen with, I don't know how to manage my money, and then the people aren't surrounding themselves with the right people, they're not finding the right partners, and they also have not the work that they want to put in to go and find out how those sheets work, how those budgeting work so that they can actually find themselves getting ahead with the budgeting. We also talked about a rule here, which was I need money to make money. Now, what about if I'm looking to get into real estate or I'm trying to make some big investments and I don't have it in my pocket? Are there other ways?
Yeah, so real estate's an interesting thing. More people become millionaires through real estate than any other industry. On average, it goes up about 2% a year. But people don't understand the benefits of real estate. So there's tax benefits, there's appreciation of the property, there's when you rent it out, your tenant is paying your mortgage down. And when you start to couple all those little invisible forced savings, you end up with about a 25% return on an investment if you make a decent investment, say in a duplex or a triplex. So what will stop people are two things. Number one is usually the down payment. There's a way you can buy real estate using other people's money, but you have to then get comfortable and confident with that. And the second piece, believe it or not, is the emotional trauma they think they're going to experience when they get a call from the tenant saying, I'm leaving, I can't pay anymore, and they're going to have an empty apartment. How do they make the mortgage payment? So you need to have some emotional support or fortitude there, and you need to understand the numbers so that you can either get other people's money to come in or you save your own money and then you can make that investment. The first one is the most difficult. Once you get that first one, oh my God, then you're addicted. It's crazy.
And so we're talking about having that creativity to find those ways to make more money. It's not always going to be coming out of your pocket. It can be other people's money. And then a lot of these streams of income that people can get into don't even need any money down. And so opening that creativity channel, being curious about it, is really going to help get you on your path to the millions. And then finally, we talked about the whole sales and I don't want to be a pushy salesperson. And we've kind of crushed that, saying like, listen, there's usually an issue when it comes to self-worth and maybe a lack of challenge to be able to do the things that are necessary to get to the financial level that we want to be. And the last system that we're going to share is just that, getting that blueprint of your first 20 years to make sure that you can see where are the areas that maybe you didn't have as much of the support or the challenges or the encouragement that you need, so that you can actually make the corrections if one of those are lacking. And with that, we're on our path to the millions. Now, what was a turning point for you? I'd love to close on that. What was a turning point? Because I know you've talked about how you did the flight attendant job. You had that lifestyle that you suppressed a lot of your expenses. And I love the quote that you say is that if you do the difficult things, life will become easy. Could you share it to people so that they can paint themselves a better vision that makes that challenging, that difficult part more worth it? How did it flip for you? What was that moment?
There were several moments. I think that your life, whether it's ever 7 years or what have you, it felt, I looked back at it, every 7 years I seemed to meet a new mentor. But when I was later, after I got let go from the airlines, I started a senior citizen home. So it was very similar, but I looked out in the future and I said, people are getting older, there must be a need for it. There was this pocket of inequity for small seniors homes where you could have 9 people in a house. I found a home with 6 bedrooms, and I found my mom, who was in social work. She ended up being my partner in it, and we were able to run this while living in the house. Again, reducing my expenses, making my own food part of the food bill of the house, so my food was tax deductible. My car now was a car that was used for the business, so it was tax deductible. So it was all these little things that I did that on the outside would appear like not that much. But at the stage that I was at, I was bringing in $110,000 there. I was making about $40,000 or $50,000 in my business, and my expenses were almost zero. So those little things had a huge impact in my life. So that was one major breakthrough. I was able to start buying other real estate. The next one was when I was a real estate salesperson, because I have a great work ethic, and I talk about this. You have to have great work ethic and be curious in life. If you have those two things, you can go just about anywhere. Nothing will stop you, because most people don't have a great work ethic and they think they already figured it out, or they know better, or they're not curious. So when I got into real estate, I was highly coachable, and I went from 1 sale to 100, and then he offered to sell me the company. And in the book, The Millionaire Next Door, it tells you that most millionaires that are kind of grassroots millionaires have one big risk they take, but it's calculated. So I bought the Remax franchise from him in 1996, and right after basically I signed, the market took off. And I never looked back. I increased my sales for 17 years in a row. So you talk about turning points, is if you just keep on showing up, Jason, if you just keep on showing up, for those of you that are listening, and you keep on putting the time and effort, luck is when you meet the preparation you've been putting in. So I got lucky, but I'd been preparing for years, showing up, work ethic. And then bam, that opened up, and I started making $1 million a year. Then I sold it for $4 million, and guess what? A few years later, she defaulted on the mortgage, and I lost $1.8 million on that. And it was just like, oh my God, what am I gonna do now? I was already kind of semi-retired. And $1.8 million is a lot of money. I worked really hard for that. And my identity started to kick in, so I went back, and then I opened up a competitor franchise called Keller Williams. And now we're bigger than the company I sold her right in the same town. Why? Because I have the work ethic and the curiosity, and I created a culture that maybe we'll have some time to talk about, of support, encourage, and challenge that fosters effort. And most people, they're not even aware of it. They're grinding, but they're not happy because nobody's going, hey, attaboy, great job. So become bitter and they quit. And some people wonder, well, why do I go 6 months here and 8 months there and 10 months there and quit? And there's a reason. And I'd love to share it with people if we have time.
Awesome. I would say in the additional training, when we talk about those 3 trainings, let's go deep into that, because I think it's going to be valuable for everyone who's watching. And Rock, as we're coming towards the end of this training, I wanted to give you the opportunity to say some final words. I mean, we've covered a lot of rules here. We have 3 systems that are going to be shared separately. And what people are listening and they're looking to make their way to the millions, and we've shared them a lot of data. What are some final thoughts we can give to these people?
So when I was a young real estate agent and I learned about the words that follow I am, follow you, I would get up in the morning, get in the shower. It was back when I actually had hair, a bit like you. And I'd be shampooing my head and I'd go, I'm the greatest real estate agent in Montreal. I am the greatest real estate agent in Montreal. And the cells of our body are eavesdropping on our conversation. So I started to drive that into my system and I said things like, you know what? They're going to be lucky if they get me to sell their home because I am the greatest real estate agent in Montreal. And I started to speak to myself and owning it. And what happens is if you don't do that is generally you wake up and you go, God, I wonder if I'm up in competition against that other person. I hope I get it, and then I hope they don't ask me to cut my commission, and you spiral down. So I think that the key is for you to build an identity, who you are, who you want to be. The words that follow I am, follow you. Script it out like you're writing a movie and then play the part. Say it over and over and over again to yourself. You wake up in the morning and get up and say, I'm gifted, guided, grateful, powerful, passionate, playful, sexy, sensual, sensitive, and blessed. Bam! Right? Build it, say it, and then become it. And that's what's worked for me. It's going to work for you too.
Amazing. And so for everybody watching, I hope you got everything you were looking for. There's going to be the additional systems in the last videos. And if anybody wants to learn more about you, they want to follow you, what are the best ways to find you?
Social media, Instagram, Facebook, rockthomas.com. They can also go to Your Epic Life Blueprint in Facebook, where I have a community. That's my second book, where I talk about the 10 habits of highly successful people, the ones that I use to get where I am. And I give some free content out there, so they can drop by there.
So thank you everybody for watching, and Rock, thank you so much for doing the training with us.
My pleasure.